So I was pondering on labeling and what labels mean. So I've called myself a lot of different things, and I've even called myself like a Pentecostal Messianic Jew, but yet both of those don't really know it all. So, and they're lacking on both sides. So you got to look at the whole picture of things and what you label and identify yourself with. I guess for me, I'd call myself more of a disciple, because that's what Yeshua wanted. Disciples, not converts. So there's just this big compendium of truth that's ever churning, and it's refining itself daily. And it's like we're diamonds in the rough, and we just need to keep with beliefs that make you a better person and resonate with you. Because if you don't believe in something, then you'll fall for anything. So just always question everything and seek purity, most of all at this point in time, because that's where you'll find the primordial, unchanging, untainted truth at its finest, base root. And I always try to go to the roots of everything, because that's where the greatest answers are. So people just need to stop labeling themselves, I think, false labels, because like the SS, because I know what it takes to be one, and it's abhorrent and it's abrasive and it creates friction and corrosion and corrosiveness to anything pure. And not a lot of good work is done in being an unknown operative in the shadows because of who's running these things. Because, you know, our essence that we were born with, that divine spark and that arrangement of the fire letters and everything that composes us and our blueprint can offshoot any entropic derision on our course. So we can deflect all these things because we're a reflection of the face of Yah, not the faces of a demiurge. And yes, our DNA can holographically transmit, transcribe, receive, and transmograph, and even transfigure ourselves, but this reality here is as real as it gets, and this is where we go to graduate, and this is where all the attention is. And even in a bifurcation simulation counterfeited realm, you know, the real original design is still everywhere, and it's like a membrane, and it's permeating, and it's still in the overlay system. So you just gotta sift through things to see the false from the real and connect to the organic source of all, and then your heart, and bring your mind down into your heart space. So then you'll start seeking the face of God and the real creator, prime creator, the way that we are supposed to. And if you're not humble, you know, he can't work with you. And it's that plain and simple. You need to become as a child to understand the mysteries of heaven, because when you're proud and tall like a weed, then, you know, you can't bend to the will of higher thought forms and higher purposes and higher intentions that are for the benefit of all of humanity, not just for yourself. Because the distractions here want to keep you focused only on yourself and give all credit to yourself. And people that channel, sometimes they're channeling satellites, or they're talking to the Sith Borg technology nanites that are swimming in the blood in their pineal gland, their spinal fluid, and, you know, they map out your neurological system, and they can cause you like a tic and Lyme's disease to even have voice pattern recognition and to make you want to kill yourselves. There's just so much of this out there that gets into our bloodstream and into our body, that constantly sloughing off that and our cellular membranes and detoxing is crux and crucial importance right now, because we're only as healthy as our cells are. And every 7 years we are fully renewed. Every 3 days we fast, we can reset like a computer rebooting itself, and we're only as healthy as our trillions of cells are, and if they're spinning correctly. So you don't need to channel the lesser G's when you have access to the mind of Christ. I mean, what more could you want than to have communication with the creator of the universe? Because God doesn't need the hook synthetic tree lattice ingested in the fall And we ate the false tree that Lucifer planted and the Luciferian rebellion that happened. We don't need those chakras more so because he just speaks directly to us on a soul level and bypasses that and any synthetic relay and input systems and mechanisms and biofeedback constructs. So stop labeling yourselves like targeted individuals and MyLabs and MK Ultras and all the other terminologies that can go with that realm, because when you do that, you're reinforcing that you're owning an illness or something, and you can stop identifying with that, basically, because when you identify with it, then you reflect it, and you got to change those thought patterns, because somewhere along the line somebody always told people involved in these programs and stuff that they were the only one, they were the special one, they were this and that, and everybody got told the same thing. And Nazis just tell the same lie over and over and over until you believe it. So, don't be proud to say that you're a zombie, no brain, because when you say that, then you would do anything at the drop of a dime. Like they want to switch you on and off like a light switch, and then you have no memory of anything you did. So please don't do that, and don't let your faith get so weak that you can't find the solutions and the consolidation of your own essence and reasoning and dynamics and individuation to even shield yourself from a little bit of energy that something or somebody is throwing at you. I mean, there's ways to deflect smart meters, anything in vehicles, if you understand and take the time to learn about the electronic and the frequency fences and control mechanisms and the frequency prison that this world is in, especially the 5G and the Skynet and all of that. There's ways to deflect all of it and to guard your home and to guard your person. So if you want to be good, then you can change. And if you want to stop getting abducted, then lay down your idols and find out what your access points are. That is allowing the enemy to come over you and take over your mind. And if you want to deprogram and not be a slave anymore, then find the one who came to set all captives free and to redeem this fallen place. It's not that hard to reach out, because even though we don't deserve it, God divorced himself from his beloved people over and over because he tried to gather them like hens gathering chickens. But he's still full of mercy and kindness that he leaves that door open for us to find it, because people keep looking to the world or think that they don't need anything but their own answers. But you really cannot do it alone or by yourselves here, because that's not the way that it was planned to happen. And that's why Yeshua came here and he warned us of the reptilian presence. People just couldn't wrap their minds around it. And even his own disciples didn't even believe him. So the percentage good that these secret projects do is far less than the needless damage that they cause. And why would you need the government or a group of classified undisclosed individuals lurking in the shadows to hack into your body and tell you that you're super in any way when you already are naturally? It's called theft. They hate your guts and they work for Hasatan. They're your enemy. They seek to kill, devour, and destroy you and any happiness that you find. So most people behind these black ops are sadistic soul murderers and the worst people on the planet. You don't want to be in their hands. And they do surgeries on children. They do augmentations. They can drop you off in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the Grand Canyon even, and feed people to sharks in front of you or anything if you're a slave. So disengage from certain thought patterns and delusions, and because anything done in secret or in the dark is usually not good. So don't pretend that it is or that you're helping humanity. You can give your vessel up to God to be used for heavenly technology and for your real mission on earth. The SSs go behind the shadows and they work in and out fast. They're in and out of bases. They have object retrieval missions. They have reconnaissance plays, things that they play out, interventional warfare, a lot of cloak and dagger decoys, in and out of underground bases, which are just holes that were like wormholes back when the antediluvian time period was, that the military made bases on top of. So in the end, people will not find any rock to crawl under. People that are still doing works in the darkness and thinking that they can get away with it, if they go underground, then they'll be met in a watery grave. So all of it was really worth nothing. So what they want to do is bring you down to hell with them, because Hades was created for the fallen angels, not really for humans. They just want to drag humans down with them. And then you get to be a golem in return for a wasted life and service to self. It's the ultimate distraction and the apex predator mindset, replacing their minds with yours and another nail in your coffin. So you need to reverse that and turn it around and send it back to where it came from. Confuse the enemy at the door in any assignments, because demons study you from the time you're born, and they know where to look to find your weaknesses. And anyone who thinks that, they're out living on planets and fell for the whole space program and all that goes on there are still not deprogrammed. And a lot of that was just a NASA trip cheer program. And most of it was mainly remote viewing, because there are artificial Luciferian tesseracts, and then there's the real heavenly tesseracts. And people's hearts are going to fail them in the end, because they're going to see the Titans come out unchained from the Euphrates River and all these things manifest. That is going to be like in the days of Noah again. So just be careful where you put your attention to as far as the truth movement goes, because most of it is very convoluted and diluted material, and is not based in reality, a lot of it. So, why on earth would anybody want to fight to get out of a clone body, for one? It's like being in purgatory, and it takes every drop of your energy to get out. And it takes years of practice to learn how to bypass these control mechanisms and systems. And scientifically, if you want to understand how they do these things to people and how to shield yourself, then you can look up quantum resonance and brain microtubules, and how atomic water particles affect that, and the creation of space-time bubbles and how they do it. And also there's the Resonance Academy, which is pretty good at explaining some of these quantum physics. But even our quantum physics are baby physics, according to the higher heavenly physics. So the goals of these programs are all the same. And like the Nephilim and all the sci-fi movies, it's just the same shit, same characters, just masquerading, repeating the same things, and taking over systems and eating their way through the bites of this subjective time and reality that we're in. The Nazis created the Greys, and then the Greys were possessed by demons as vessels, and then they took over the malleable minds of our government and created MJ-12, and then they wanted a bigger vessel, a Draco body that would host Lucifer. So they're building an army, and they have been for a long time. And they're unceasing, and they will not cease until their fate is sealed on Judgment Day. And at the end of Montauk, it was just plain bizarro land. And I was fighting portals opening up from hell itself. And they tried to burn the image of the beast into my brain. And it was only God that saved me and his angels. It was 2 chairs across from each other in glass chambers. And there's a black honeycomb floor and panels surrounding black windows that images would play out of. And then you would be attacked psychologically and at every level by sorcerers, one by one. Crowley Council of the Druids, there's 13, and they had chairs, and they would watch it was like a water oval Stargate, and it was kind of like a runway. And they'd watch people go in and out of it, and it was like a platform, I guess. So people had a wristband on, and they had something in their hand, and they had the time periods for these things, and it was just a show for these elite. So You know, you'd be in the 2 chambers and you'd be fighting for your life in there. You didn't ever want to sit in the chair because they would always try to push you down in the chair and try to trap you in something. So you always wanted to stand up. And Casbolt was in this building with the Druid, the Grand Druid Council. And you couldn't feel Archangel Michael's energy anymore at the end because it just wasn't there. It was kind of on the back burner. I didn't really know what was going on at the very end. But divine intervention had to happen in that spot because angels literally became walk-ins to kids' bodies. At one point, Montauk was the weirdest place on the planet, and nobody would ever be able to describe from beginning to end just the absurdity of it or the weirdness of it, because there was so much alien technology and things going on that even if you did understand the alien tech and learn how to operate or manipulate systems, it was a daily struggle to remember that, because you would have NLP and all these other counterintuitive things to your productivity and progress that would make you be kind of spellcast back into a amnesiac mindset. So every day was a struggle to remember what you had learned the day before. Basically, they didn't want you to remember this alien tech and language. You know, they would compartmentalize everything you did learn just to call it out so they could use it just for their purpose and omit it. So angels were there and they were saving souls, basically. And they fought on the forefront of the battlefield right away, because the cages themselves in the beginning were so gruesome that they had body parts hanging up just on the walls for leftovers or for later. And they had boys in there that would have like a leg cut off. They would have black goo coming out of their eyes. They would inject them with black goo, leave them freezing for days, bleeding out. Then the angels or the higher entities would come in, and they'd usually come in groups of 4. And then they'd come in and try to adjust themselves and take over the body of the person. And then their eyes would flash like light bulbs. And then they would get set, calibrated, speak to each other, and walk out and battle the enemy that was there, the troops that were out there, because the kids couldn't defend themselves on their own. And at first they needed those legions fighting legions to clear the path and to pave the way so that they could have survivors there and to prove that God is stronger. So I went through hell at the end so that the little kids didn't have to go through it anymore. And they had, like I said, the 2 chambers that rotated, and there was a circle foot stand that was silver, and you could face each other in these chair chambers. And they showed you like a person or a clone over here that you'd have to stand across from, like getting its throat slit or something horrendous. I mean, they threw everything psychologically at you that they could. So you had to keep fighting, and it's constantly knock you off your base so that you would get distracted. And then they also would try to take over your body and make you drink this milky nano compound that would make your legs feel like concrete so that you would stick to the floor plate right away and then have trouble escaping your body. And they could still attack you mentally then, spiritually, physically, so you'd lose focus. So then after you drank this compound, your legs would start vibrating because the plate that you're standing on would start vibrating too. So it's hard to explain, but you had to cancel out the right signal in your ear and focus on the right dust particle frequency and signature and color and pattern that would trip you out of this experience. And, you know, they were always trying to knock out your psychic acuity because not many made it out of there. And it took a lot of practice to get to the point to be able to withstand this, not let alone the radiation and all the other things that were there, but to be able to withstand the chair and to learn how to manipulate the experiences in the chair and to manifest your own reality, because they only wanted you as a manifestation template to manifest what they wanted you to. So there's a lot about frequency, signature, pattern recognitions. And Montauk had the best tech in the world at one point, even teleportation tech. So you had to question everything always and keep up. And it was this a copy or was this a real thing? Montauk was a dire situation that needed that divine intervention to shut the dragon's mouth up. So soul surrogates were allowed at that point in time, that juncture in time, to save children's lives and do battle for them, because it was sanctioned and condoned and commissioned straight from heaven's decree and will. So sometimes that does happen in history, but people like Yeshua and Miriam and the Holy Family and that those types only need to incarnate on the earth plane just once. But I started getting taken there by age 3, and it was firstly by an artificial wormhole. My sister was one of the first female escape artists there, and we worked as a team, and she wasn't accepting the reality at all. And I saw the energy vortex and the fear mongering that the Dracos were doing. They had a female Draco that was eating bones in front of us right away, and we didn't really know what to think at first, but we learned to bypass the fear right away, basically, because that's what they wanted. So my sister, my brother, and me, we stood in front of this in non-fear, and we tell ourselves not to fear. And you could see like the vortex where it came from, and they had like a tool in their hands, and we learned how they were doing this, and so we learned how to get the tech and to get out of Dodge. And it was like opening an aperture. So we'd go by the spot that we would see. I would always see the energy lines, so I'd direct us where to go, and then we would stand in a circle together, and then we were back into our bedrooms. And they really didn't like this. And then they came after us because of that. And my sister even got cocky about this. And when they finally did come to the house to get us again, she thought that they were just holograms because she had done this, escaping from it so many times. So then they came in the door and she said, "Oh, you couldn't get me back there, so you had to send it back up." And then when they took us, she realized that this was real. So then they took us, and what they did was they chipped us in the back of our heads. And then I went back home, and me and my brother were holding our heads in the back, and we could feel it. It felt like a little lead weight in our heads. We were just holding our heads, and we knew that we couldn't get it out, so we just had to deal with it. And it was a pretty heavy feeling at first when you're sensitive to these things. So it kind of felt like a lead weight. And we got a little scared then. And, we realized maybe our sister wasn't the superhero we thought she was. So then we started taking there rhythmically and cyclically. And we were shown the machines, and I was shown in this basement what the machines did when you sat on them. And there was like a little white ball on one of them and a little screen. And they were looked like old school machines. And Swerdlow even shows them in one of his Vimeo videos. And I was taken down into that room and shown all the things that were done down there. And there's a screen down there. So my brother was telling people about this when he was little. And he was telling people about being taken into a basement of a warehouse and all the machinery and sitting on the machines and what he had to do. And nobody listened to him. So listen to your children, because sometimes they're telling you the truth mostly, especially if they're telling you that they're being taken down into an underground facility and having strange things happen to them. So this NSA couple that came to our house, we thought that, they told people that they were church people and that they would be taking us to camps. So we'd be gone weeks at a time. And obviously parents and other people were under mind control. Then they came again, did the same thing. And I'm sure at this point of them chipping us initially and all that they had made clones of us. And then those clones were rapidly trained. It's called rapid advanced training. So then they would fill in the gap, and then we would go back there and pick up where we had left off. And it was just inflow and outflow. It was very cyclic. And we were tripped into them as we grew older, and then we teleported and quantumly entangled there. And Montauk also had various shuttles and chute systems, and rails to Jersey, to other parts of New York, Connecticut, everywhere, even underneath cities. And they also had the TRV-3s and the other Air Force and classified crafts that they were bringing children in and out of. So it was very organized, but yet it was very organized, but yet it was so bizarre in the sense that nobody still that was operational there knew fully what was going on, because they made it like that for a reason. So yes, it was very operational, but still people didn't know fully what they were doing there, because they never really fully ever told you what was going on. So then they, of course, monitor you after they bring you into these programs and track you. And when they sent us home and had chipped us, then this blue ball would come into our house, and it wasn't really that big. And then it would come into a doorway, and it would go into every doorway in the house, and it would paralyze you when it stopped in the doorway. It just had a hum to it, and then it would open up a little, and some light came out, and it would scan your body, and then it would zip out the window and leave. So I would be like running out on the porch, like thinking, like, what do you want from this blue scanner? So they always had a way of tracking you and keeping tabs on people. So, you know, I've been battling these bastards half my life, and you can stabilize from it though, and disengage and decommission yourself and find freedom in Christ is the only way. Because then you become a new being, a new creature through all this hybridization, and you have a new perspective, because he's the only God that makes all things new and moves things. And I just like to see people get delivered, all those that are affected. And when you stand in unison and agreement, Yeshua said that when one or two were gathered in his name, that he would be there in the midst of you. So just invite Yeshua to come into your space and to bind up broken hearts and broken minds, and, you know, cancel out those feelings of isolation, complacency, for also having to kill and dispose of altars after their uses or missions were complete, especially the deep water ones that were used to remote view planets and intelligences and realms of the firmament, because there's aeons and firmaments in every heaven, and more layers than what we're aware of, or even that's written in a lot of spiritual books, and nests of spirits up there. You know, there's Luciferian counterfeit tesseracts, and then there's heavenly living light tesseracts. And stars are really just water discs, and they look like eyes. They're living light tesseracts. And planets are similar, but they have more color and depth to them. But just reject unsanctioned quantum entanglement, and especially with clones that were sent to like Clavius moon bases, or because that's only a few hundred miles away, really. Nothing is ever millions of miles out there. That is all flat out lies. You know, the moon's been hollowed out, yes, and it's been used by various governments with a radar system and a fence deployed for long range frequency scanning. So we just have to cancel the terror of being caught in any of those nets or systems, or especially ISS soul scanning machinery, soul catcher technologies, you know, and accept deliverance when it comes, and accept that any chain that has been put on you can be broken by the blood of the Messiah. And any fragments, handlers, dark water, allegiant cult altars, sorcerers, wizards, maguses, druids, time stalkers. You can shatter all those and find wholeness. There's, for a long time, been Crowleyan adversaries, night hunters, unholy prying bird eyes, unholy sanctuaries, indoctrination stations, doors, locks, windows, seals. Those can all be kicked down. Time frames, loops. Ask for anything or any spirit or any entity or any being to reveal themselves and to reveal what they really truly are, because they can't hold their shape for more than a few minutes. And you can command all these things. You can ask for any Nazi games to stop playing out, any records to stop playing themselves out, for psyops to die, gang stalkers to scatter and be confused at the door, for scalar weaponry attacks to cease and desist, 5G, Skynet, Bluebeam, Voice to Skull, Five Eyes, anything strung into the networks that is unhealthy and uninhabitable for your body, cease and desist, and unplug from any neural nets and any hive mind precursors and precogs. So abort any of those Nazi lies, lying factions, agencies of the like, and speak light to your being. And ask for the assistance of the Holy Chayot, which is the angelic realms, to come down and give you comfort, to shine wisdom on your face and any assignments that the enemy has for you, to be weeded out, any of those assignments to be thrown back and to burn with fire. Anything that's against your life, you have the power and the authority to override it and to destroy it. Because you have the authority and power in Jesus Christ to destroy your old self. So clear cosmic debris that you've collected from forced missions into the heavenly abodes, astral realms, any knowledge, foresight, or participation in the Abaddon activations, anything having to do with the ninth inner circles, or occult agendas in those arenas, Freemasonic inlays, anything that really dims your life force, that takes you into captivity for any period or amount of time, that causes any derision. So you ask for the return of all that energy, and then ask for the draining of any cysts that press on your hippocampus, because those cysts, no matter how small they are, cause memory erasure too, and they can simulate cysts there and in certain parts of your glands and your brain mapping. So just confront any confusion and ask for clarity, and discard any abuse caused by cloning centers, twin Gemini pairings, splintering of identities of who and what you are to the Eternal Father and to his kingdom. Because perfect love casts out all fear, and stand in that recognition and solidification so that your core can grow stronger and your light can shine brighter and love can gain favor and of the source in which it stems from. And my essence can be constituted in waves of profundity and profound recognition. So let peace pass over you, and that peace will go beyond any understanding you've ever had. And it will be an absolution and a blessed assurance that your soul will rest in the great I am. You're not the great I am. The great I am is the one who declared and created himself, the great I am first, before anything was. And the clouds, in the aeons, the dispersions, the formations, and the troops of angels, and the generations, in all of the pre-existence. The whole plan was already laid out before we even came here. So I revoke any instance that I've ever aided, helped, or assisted the enemy in any way, shape, or form. And I repent for any time I've turned and looked away from suffering or helped those in need to ensure my own survival, or ignored a cry or a plea for help, even within my own being, from having knowledge of cures, even of remedies, how to heal the sick, how to lay hands on people and help the downtrodden. And anytime that I didn't use my abilities to do so or acted in discordance with Torah law, even, because Torah law is the outline for righteousness and the means by which we imitate the Creator to draw closer to him. And I revoke any time my discipleship and walk with Yeshua was halted, interrupted, or stopped, because they don't want you to have a relationship with these things. So I also revoke any time I've fallen short of the glory of, or was unappreciative of any gifts given to me, disregarded, unacknowledged any blessings, prayers that were answered, or just even of the grace that was allotted to me, or when I distanced and furthered myself into self-degradation to repel my own soul's advantage and the parameters that God set for me to experience for my spiritual attunement and attainment in this subjective life in the fallen plane that we exist and thrive upon. Or for substituting anything other than the Holy Spirit to seek the way, the truth, and the life of any time like I've ever diminished, offended, or grieved the Holy Spirit, because it has a tripartite nature to it, and those blessings and anointings that come from it. Because when you let that in, then your temple that the Creator designed and etched out and prepared for each one of us to inhabit and experience and set into motion needs to be pure in order for His Spirit to dwell in there. And that's why chimeras are an abomination, because when you combine an animal and human and all this other genetics together and try to combine souls like that, then it won't recognize itself. Because God wants to dwell inside of His creations and comfort them 24/7. And He gave a way in which to do that. So God's ultimate purpose is to save us abundantly and experience the unsearchable riches. So He's moving us forward to that end and leading us to the way. If we take the advantage and heed the call and accept the responsibility to move with Him from station to station until we enter into the fullness. So don't harden yourself and your hearts in this rebellion so you can't enter in because of your own unbelief and alienation from God that you chose. So don't ignore Him and reject His love for you or spiritual disciplines that He died for us to teach us, really. And don't end up lost in the woods, because the heart can lead you astray. And back in the day, on those days of testing in the wilderness, some people were tested for 40 years back then. So those who don't know His ways won't enter into His rest. So don't fall away from the living God or shut up His word, because it will be you who will be counted in the strong delusion and shut out in the end. And, even in my fragmented mind at Montauk, and maybe even in a clone probably, I still wanted God so bad in that darkness that I had a Bible with me and I tried baptizing myself in a bathtub to get away from it. So no matter where you are, even if it's in prison or the darkest place, other people have been there. And it doesn't have to be as miserable as Montauk by any means, but God will meet you anywhere. In jail, at the end of a rope, in the reflection of a razor blade, or even in a still small voice. So just listen and act when your soul is telling you to do what's right, even if it's absurd in the moment. I stand in awe all the time at how amazing God's character and personage actually is when He reveals Himself to you and you have that personal relationship. Because God's always wanted that with His creations, and God gave Adam and Eve everything that they needed to be stewards here. And even when He cast them out of the top of the tree and they fell into the hollow and lived in a cave, He still gave them gold sticks so that they wouldn't be afraid at night. And He sent them archangels, always. They had frankincense that the prayers were lifted up with and myrrh to comfort them. And Adam even put a piece of gold on Eve's chest when he married her. We have a lot of these collective memories, and these collective memories were carried by the Son of God when He was here. And then they were reenacted by the three wise men, because the tree of life was a portal. And they were called Adam and Eua. So when they died, they were ransomed by Yeshua when He went and set the captives free in Hades, in Sheol. And then they went and got baptized up in the Arcturian lake, back up into the city of God, and to re-enter paradise. It's called a floating island. And when Satan stabbed Adam in the side in the garden and pretended to be an old man that was cloaked, that was also reenacted with the spear of Longinus, and Yeshua being stabbed in his side when he was hanging on the tree.